All right, and we're recording. So, thank you all for joining this evening. Scott and I are here to talk about making meal planning simple. So, Scott, let's let's dive right in. First and foremost, why does this matter, or why should people care? Let's start there before we really get into the actionable stuff that can really help people out. Like, why do you believe in your decade of experience of being a dietitian? Why should people care or put forward the effort to do something like this?
Yeah, this is something that a lot of people struggle with, including myself on and off. But it really will. Just having a plan is going to save you a lot of time and stress during the week. A lot less rushing around trying to decide really what to eat. You go to start making dinner and making food for the family, realizing that you don't have the ingredients that you thought you had, and a lot of these things just ultimately lead to going to the drive-through, ordering takeout, stuff like that, that will ultimately just work towards or work against your goals and kind of set you back. So it's one of those things that is really simple, but not always the easiest to execute. So just having a plan goes a long way.
Sure, that definitely helps make better decisions. And what we were talking about before we jumped on here was just when you plan out how much time you actually save by kind of batching that and planning your meals a little bit in advance. So, all right, so before people actually get started, like just going in the kitchen and cooking, what are some questions they should be asking, or what are some things that should help shape the decisions around what should I or shouldn't I meal prep?
Yeah, it's important first to determine where you are in your current journey. Are you somebody who really enjoys cooking? Are you someone who rarely cooks, maybe once or twice a week, and is just starting on the journey towards their just healthier habits? Or do you cook on a regular basis every night and you're just someone that may be getting a little bit bored and just looking to keep things fresh with some new recipes? It's also important then to determine what your end goal is. Is it to lose weight? Is it to reduce dinner time stress trying to feed the family? Or is it just, again, to take the first steps towards getting into a healthy routine of cooking at home to aid in achieving your primary goals, whether that be weight loss, adding muscle, so on. So doing that first will enable you just to hopefully get in the healthy habit of eating more meals in the home with the family and just not eating out as much. So you're going to be saving time, saving money, hopefully reducing stress along the way. But it's really important to start simple and not overcomplicate things. Chances are most things you prepare in the house are going to be a better option than eating out. Again, you're going to save time, save money, and most likely eat a lot fewer calories and hopefully just bring you one step closer to your ultimate goals in the gym.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. When we talk to clients, I think the starting simple is such a huge piece. Some people will want to jump in head first, and while we love the enthusiasm for it, it can tend to be overwhelming. And so I definitely think, like you said, keep it, start simple, don't overcomplicate things, and anything you do at home, not anything, but most things you do at home are going to be better than the alternative of eating out, definitely. So, okay. Um, Now, once you've thought about it, where you're at on your journey, what's the end goal? What am I working towards? Let's talk about planning ahead. So I make a decision today. You know what? Scott sold me. I'm going to start planning my meals this weekend. What next?
Yeah, so let's lay the groundwork first before starting with a few helpful tips. So, first, don't worry about planning every meal. It's totally unnecessary. But just planning ahead, brainstorming for 5 to 10 minutes once a week, maybe over the weekend, will save a lot of headaches. Next, tackle the hardest parts first and try to lower the barrier. So, what are you currently struggling with? Is it breakfast, lunch, dinners, snacks? Just try to identify the pain points first. Where are you currently struggling? And um, Do you do you find making time for grocery shopping stressful? I know that is a really common one. I struggle with that as well. If that is you, plan ahead. Just do curbside pickup during non-peak hours, maybe during the week if you can get away or midday. Try to make it as easy as possible to overcome all these obstacles. Um, if traditional meal prepping or preparing large quantities and preparing every lunch or every dinner, like a lot of people do during the week, seems really stressful. It is stressful. Just plan for recipes that can be prepared in under 30 minutes during weeknights. I know some people really just don't like leftovers. And if you're one of those people, don't force yourself to try to become one of those people because ultimately you're not going to stick with it. And really, what we're going for is just long term sustainable results and good habits that you can do forever. So don't try to force yourself into a mold that really doesn't fit you. Um, if you really don't mind reheating food and eating leftovers, try to utilize similar ingredients for multiple meals. So, for example, if you're already cooking chicken for tonight's dinner, why not just cook a few extra for the next night or a couple nights on the road? You can slice it up, throw it in a salad, throw it in a bowl, other recipes. Same thing goes for ground meat, fish, really any kind of protein. If you're already doing the task and you've already gone to the grocery store, you're already cooking, getting the kitchen dirty, why not just make a little bit more for another night just to make things easier on yourself? Um, Plan to prepare meals that you actually look forward to cooking. That's a really important one. So, dishes that you would order in a restaurant. Again, chances are, if you're making it at home, it's going to be a lot healthier, a lot fewer calories, probably less fat, less carbs, less salt. So try to order foods you really look forward to eating. It's going to be more exciting, and the chances of you sticking with this kind of approach is going to be a lot higher. Um, and then the last one, plan for the whole family. Try to choose meals that are very easily customizable and that a lot of people like. So if you are someone that has a meat and potatoes spouse who may not be on board with quote unquote healthy meals, or you have picky kids, picky teens, that can definitely make things difficult. Options like bowls, wraps, burgers, tacos, salads, or even a basic meal with protein, veggie, starch, that kind of thing. You can really easily modify all those to make it work with any plan, with any goal. So, something I find really helpful is turning almost any dish into a salad. Always have kale, arugula, even iceberg is going to be not as nutritious, but it's certainly a better option than a lot of things. But you can very easily, if the family likes burgers, get lean ground beef, 90/10 or leaner, and just don't have the bun if your goal is fat loss and chop it up. You can throw it in a salad. You can really do that with almost any kind of protein source. Things like bowls, if you have other people in the house who maybe aren't trying to lose weight or just don't care that much, they can still load up with whatever they want, but then you can really easily just decrease the portion size of grains and sauces, dressings, that kind of stuff, so that everybody hopefully is happy in the long run.
Yeah, no, there's some great stuff. I know for us in our house, the cooking, the meal prepping the proteins on the weekend. I'm not sure how we'd survive without it. So just having those ready, and then you can make, ground turkey tacos, throw it in a salad, just like you said, mix it in with some cauliflower rice, kind of like a Mexican dish, and black beans. There's so many options there. We love crock pot meals as well. We'll do crock pot, and that's something you can snack on for a few days. I liked what you said about tackle the hard parts first. Just with the idea in mind that I think it's so important to reemphasize, like keep it simple. Like you don't have to meal prep everything. It's not an all or none. You can start with just your dinners or just the thing that you're struggling with, and oftentimes that's going to move the needle forward quite a bit. So I think that was a great suggestion as well. And then with the whole family, yeah, like you said, a lot of your proteins, you can kind of customize it based on everyone's individual. You can cook off a bunch of chicken and then tweak it to each person and kind of what their taste buds are craving. So all great stuff. So once you've planned ahead. Oh, and one last thing I was going to mention on this was with the grocery shopping. Speaking for us, we get our groceries delivered and just like not related to meal prep, but it causes us to make so much better decisions because we're not in there seeing the boxes and like, boy, this looks good, and grabbing all the unhealthy stuff that looks really good. So the curbside pickup, grocery delivery, I think that's all great stuff. So once you've thought about it, a client decides, okay, I'm going to plan out my dinners, or they have they plan it ahead, and they've ordered the groceries, they figured out what they're going to eat, they're planning ahead. Let's talk a little bit more specifically on that action plan and what that looks like. What would you recommend?
Yeah, so let's actually go through this. And I didn't mention this in the beginning, but if you have a piece of paper and a pen handy, we can actually do this now. If not, do it later. But it is, I think, really helpful just kind of assessing the plan and just going through it on a weekly basis. It's only going to take 5 to 10 minutes a week, but it does really help throughout the week. So, step one, first determine which meals cause you the biggest headache. Is it breakfast, before work, lunches, at work, or on the go, or dinners? So, first step is just determining where are you struggling the most currently. Once you've done that, step two is reviewing your schedule for the week. What days do you have the ability to actually cook in the house? Um, do you have after work functions on maybe Monday, Wednesday, or sports, with the kids or other after school activities on Tuesday? And you can really just take a sheet of paper and just write out. I don't know if you can actually see this. It doesn't have to be a fancy spreadsheet. It can just be like a quick and dirty, like 2, 3 minutes on a Saturday or Sunday, any day of the week. But just taking a moment to really just reflect and think about what you have planned for the upcoming week is really going to help. So once you have determined which days you can cook and which days you can't cook, then step three would be brainstorming recipes and just writing them down. And so when you're doing that, first focus on the meals you don't need recipes for, things you've cooked 1,000 times. Um, it can be almost anything. You can really pretty easily take almost any recipe, make a few tweaks, add another protein source, decrease fat, decrease carbs, or sub in a less optimal carb for maybe something that has a little more fiber in it. It can be almost anything. You can modify it so that it fits almost any plan, just paying attention to the portion sizes you're actually eating. Um, if evenings are stressful, and you're getting off work and trying to cook and everything, the last thing in the world you want to do is have the added stress of cooking a brand new recipe while you're trying to rush around. It's not going to go well. So having just a maybe 10, 15 recipes that are tried and true, you've made them before, those are going to be your go-tos, your staples. And then there's really nothing wrong with eating the same meals week in, week out. If you're one of those people that is a creature of habit, you're not getting bored. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that as long as you're getting enough variety throughout the week and you're getting other variety throughout the day from your other meals and snacks. Um, then start by just writing a list of recipes and then fill in the gaps with newer creative recipes. You can find these on Pinterest. You can find these on like Instagram or different websites. There's a million of them out there. It just takes, you know, 10 minutes or so a week and it doesn't even have to be every week for this step. It's really just trying to find 15 or 20 total recipes, including the tried and true recipes that you know off the back of your hand without actually having to follow a recipe. Um, you can go ahead and just spend, if you do have paper, uh, spend like 30 seconds and just jot down it could be like your favorites. It could be things that you maybe have not made in a while, or things that you've been thinking about that may just add a little more variety. But just take a moment and just kind of brainstorm. You could take notes on your phone. Just think about maybe 10 recipes off the top of your head that you could try to implement in the next like 2 weeks or so.
That's great. Yep. We'll give people 30 seconds to do that. And I'm scribbling down a few things myself.
You got any favorites, John?
I go through cycles, but lately it's been the ground turkey. It chicken. I go through cycles where I get kind of burned out on it, or just all I think it's great, low calorie, but after a while, it just kind of, eh, just I kind of lose interest in it. Whereas ground turkey and eggs are two of my go-tos, or egg whites.
Yeah, those are any kind of ground meat, eggs are some of
Yeah.
the most versatile things. You can do a
Oh yeah.
lot of the awesome things to have on hand. Just stock up the freezer when they're on sale.
Hmm.
All right. And so once you kind of have a list of new and old recipes, so you can modify any recipe accordingly if needed. If it's, there's a lot of really good vegetarian options, and a lot of really good vegetarian like blogs and cookbooks and stuff. You can just sneak in, if that makes sense for you, sneak in a fish, uh, salmon, turkey, chicken, whatever. Just trying to prioritize protein. And then step five is where the rubber meets the road. So actually creating a grocery list for yourself. Determine what you have on hand and then what you will need to buy. Um, when you're doing this, it's really important to plan ahead to prepare enough to have leftovers for reheating that same meal, or just preparing enough protein or enough, roasted veggies or whatever that you can utilize for another recipe 2, 3 days down the road. So make sure you're buying enough so you can actually prepare enough so you don't have to cook every single night. And then uh, step six is uh, taking a moment to create a list of really super fast, convenient, healthy alternatives to going to the drive-throughs or ordering takeout, that kind of stuff. And these can be what you would call like a hybrid option. So, for example, smoked salmon, things that are already cooked, you could pick up from the deli. If there's like a favorite restaurant or like a barbecue spot that has like a really good smoked turkey, there's a lot of good options so that it's going to save time. It might be a little bit more expensive than cooking it yourself, but chances are it's still going to taste pretty good. And you're going to be able to cut out calories that you would have otherwise eaten if you were actually going to the restaurant and ordering, apps and getting drinks and all the works that come along with going out to eat. So don't be afraid to do that. Step seven is utilizing gadgets. I have a sous vide. It was a game changer. I've had it for a few years. If you're not familiar with what a sous vide is, it's really just like a wand. Fill a big pot with water. It heats up the water to whatever temperature you want it to be, depending on what you're cooking, and then it just circulates the water, and the food cooks in an airtight bag or like a Ziploc bag in a water bath. So that's something kind of like a crock pot that you can set up in the morning or the night before, whatever, and you can just let it go. It'll do its thing. And usually, the longer you let those run, if you're making meat, the more tender it's going to be. So that could be something you set up, go to work, come home, it's good to go. You just pull it out. You can sear it if you want to. You don't have to, and then slice it up and add it to whatever dish you're actually preparing. That's a huge time saver. Um, Another one would be like an Instapot. I don't have one of those, but I know they are massively helpful in reducing the amount of time that certain dishes take. Air fryers are great. And then the freezer. Um, certain things like soups, like a chicken chili, you can customize to be really high in protein, very low in fat. It can fit into almost any plan. Um, Soups and foods like that freeze really, really well. And so that's I think an oftentimes an overlooked option is just trying to prepare foods, throw them in the freezer, and then you might have to think about it like the night before, pull it out, let it thaw out. But then you're not actually having to prepare meals if you've got all X, Y, Z to do after work. Step 8 is once you've got a solid list of new and old recipes, save them in your phone, print them out, but essentially just creating an index that you can go back to and reference throughout the week, week after week. And you, again, really don't need that many recipes. You're just looking for maybe 10 to 20. If you don't really get that bored, you can certainly have a lot more in there, but you can sub those out seasonally, depending on what kind of produce is really good at the moment. But it should be enough that you're not getting totally bored, but you don't need 50 recipes. This doesn't have to be like a big fat binder, but having a resource like that is tremendously helpful in just eliminating decision fatigue when you're sitting down and spending, 5, 10 minutes, what am I going to do for this week? When can I cook? Then you've got that resource readily available. You can access it and just go through and, oh, I haven't had that in a while, and just pick those things out, plug them into the like curbside pickup, and then go get them, hopefully not on like a Sunday afternoon when it's really busy. But little tips and tricks like that go a long way. And it really only takes, you know, 10, 15 minutes a week to save a lot of time and a lot of stress. And even if it's not stressful, it hopefully will save you from going through the drive-through and just getting fast food.
Yeah, a lot of things you said there I really loved. The reviewing your schedule for the week, like you said, like mapping out a calendar. I think that's great. Allows you to kind of, you could even create a theme, like, all right, it's Taco Tuesday. You could create a theme for the different days if you wanted to. I also think that's important looking at the week ahead, because I know I was just talking to Alicia yesterday, and we've got a big birthday party for her niece on Saturday, where we're going to be eating, bratwurst and cake and grilling out. And so by knowing that that's coming up, we we can tell ourselves like, hey, we need to tighten things up, in the couple days leading up to that, because you wouldn't want to eat terrible on Friday and then turn around and do it again on Saturday. So I think the planning is huge. I also, one of the other things that you mentioned that I loved was the decision fatigue. That's a real thing. I know for myself, the worst case scenario is working a long day and then having to decide what to eat. It's a recipe for disaster. And to have that planned out ahead of time does help. You just grab it and you go. Whereas if you have to think about it too much, again, that's for myself at least, usually doesn't end well. So decision fatigue's a real thing, and that's why typically our willpower tends to get worse as the day goes on, just because our brain's tired of working all day. So um, there's a lot of amazing stuff. You touched on a lot of different things. As far as like takeaways, like the big things, if someone was to take away, three or four ideas from this, what are the main things that you would want them to take away?
Yeah. So I know that none of this is like, this like groundbreaking new information to a lot of people, but it really is helpful. And it's one of those things again, like fat loss. It's really simple. It's just not that easy to execute unless you have a plan. So always have a plan. Keep it simple. Don't plan to cook every night unless you have the time to do so and you really enjoy cooking. Um, the second one would be plan to redu- plan to reduce stress and not add more. So don't plan to prepare new recipes on nights where you're strapped for time. It's just not going to go well. It's not going to be enjoyable, and in the long run, you're probably not going to stick to the plan. The third one would be don't plan every meal. Evaluate and determine where you're falling short. what's the pain point and what are you currently struggling with, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. Just spend 5, 10 minutes over the weekend or sometime throughout the week to determine when you have the ability to cook and then what you need to buy, build out the grocery list, and really just try to execute. So it just comes down to execution. That this is not super complicated. It just, it has to be on the schedule and it has to be a routine that you're doing week in, week out, so that hopefully in the long run it becomes second nature and it kind of just goes on autopilot. And at that point, it really won't require that much brain power to actually do this. But I do understand it can be overwhelming at first, but just keep it simple.
Yeah, I think keeping it simple, especially in the beginning, is so important. I loved what you said about, don't add stress. This should reduce stress, not add it. So that which kind of speaks back to the, keeping it simple. Don't try to cook everything off tomorrow for the next 10 days. Yeah, the idea behind meal planning should be to reduce your stress, not add to it. I like what you said, you got to kind of pick your battles. Um, if you're got a busy day, probably not the time that you want to break out a new complicated recipe. And then, I like the kind of cherry picking. Where are you falling short? What's the low hanging fruit that would give you the biggest bang for your buck? Is it, is dinner where you tend to fall short? All right, well, maybe that's where you prioritize, or lunch, whatever it is. Focus, your execution there. So, awesome stuff, Scott. If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, post them in the chat. We'll give it about 1 minute. And if no one has any questions, then we'll just wrap this up. But if you've got any questions, go ahead and fire them away.